Trump administration. The talks are reportedly mostly between White House lawyers, but President Biden himself has talked with some senior aides. No decision has been made, and it's reportedly still possible the president opts not to pardon anyone. President Biden's pardon of his son Hunter Biden has received widespread criticism, and most of the pardons considered would be blanket pardons since the administration members haven't been accused of a crime. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Now the story of somebody no longer a criminal in California.
55-year-old Pedro Martinez was a custodian at Maple Elementary School near Bakersfield and had no previous criminal record when he was hit with multiple sexual assault charges, alleging he raped young kids in 2019. Spent the next few years in prison until he was eventually exonerated in 2023. His lawyers say his trial relied solely on the testimony of a mentally ill woman who was a known drug addict. Martinez now suing the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office, and other county officials. The Sheriff's Department says it does not comment on pending litigation. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
On Thursday Night Football, the Detroit Lions clinched an NFL playoff spot, beating the Green Bay Packers 34-31. I'm Dave Anthony. This is Fox News.
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
And it is Friday morning, and my friend Stan Pierchoski is in here with Bulletproof Estate Planning. How are you?
And we are here.
Very good.
We are the legend.
Yeah, you may have to keep the mic a little closer today than usual because for some reason the mic strength is way down. I've got it wide open, so.
How's it look now?
You're good.
I can hear myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I heard that when I was driving in. I was listening to you folks, and you.
Very good.
LB was giving some pointers on how to fix that.
Yeah. He says it's one of those knobs up there, but I don't know which one. Anyway, well, it's been a couple of weeks.
It has. Last week was Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Did you have a great one?
I did have a good one. It was we had some family visiting from out of town, some in-law family, and my daughter was not with us, but we were down there a week or two before in Florida. So it was a very good one. We had a lot of food, ate way too much, enjoyed it too much.
I understand.
But it was a pleasant few days off to just kind of chill out. Weather was good.
Yeah. And now our attention is turning to Christmas.
That's right. I mean, it's less than 3 weeks now.
That's right. That's right.
Good grief. So, hey, I'll bring us up at the end of the hour, but next seminar I've got is January the 25th, which is a Saturday, and it's right here at the WLX radio station.
That's right.
Back in the building. And we call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home. And, Saturday ones we do at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And the presentation is about an hour and 15 minutes long. I try to make it an hour, but it just doesn't seem to stay under an hour. But it sort of needs to be, really. And if you hadn't come to one, it's not too late to RSVP because we've already got some on the list.
Yeah.
Now, this is a venue where I don't worry much about running out of space because it's pretty big.
Yeah.
When we had the one in Franklin last month, we got close to capacity. But But and they keep me busy. After these seminars, I'm pretty busy. So if you want to hear what we have to say, it's a good time of year. I know we kind of structure it so it's after the holidays because when you get into the January, February, March scene, it's kind of humdrum and nothing much going on. It just seems like all the excitement's over and there's nothing really in sight for a couple months, But we will have that one in late January. So I'll bring that up again at the end of the hour.
Awesome.
So
very good, very good.
I was thinking as we were introducing the show, I call myself Bulletproof Estate Planning.
Yes.
And you know as well as you know now as well as I do that even when we say bulletproof, it doesn't mean we're going to not get shot at.
Yeah.
It means the bullets,
or face challenges.
The bullets aren't going to get us. Okay?
That's right.
And you probably know the case I'm talking about.
I do, as a matter of fact.
So it doesn't, it's not foolproof or no stress.
Yes.
Estate planning, especially some of the 10 care planning we do. So there's always issues, and sometimes it just never ceases to amaze me, the stuff that comes up. I was going to talk a little bit about that case a little bit. And,
sure.
And another one that the stuff that came up was just so far out in left field, it's hard to deal with. Not hard to deal with. Let me put it this way. In a normal courtroom setting or judicial action, okay, you have it's an adversary system. You got your side and their side, right?
Right.
And there's rules that apply. And you kind of go into court when you argue something, you sort of know the other side's position, and so you build a defense for it, or if the other side is building their prosecution of something, right? And so you kind of know what it is you're going to argue about. And because there's a set of rules that govern things. So we kind of have we're in the ballpark. You're really not allowed surprises when things like in court.
Right.
That's why when you do civil cases, you have what's called discovery. Same thing with criminal cases. They have to, they got to disclose the evidence they have. If the defense has anything, they've got to tell the prosecution about it. You can't blindside somebody. It's called due process. You have to have all the facts, and that the facts speak, and the rules govern that. Now, so when that happens, you sort of have an expectation what you're getting into. Sometimes things pop up that they're a little out of the ordinary, but you never really get blindsided or sucker punched kind of way.
Right.
Well, in this area of law, when dealing with TennCare, it just seems to happen a lot. I mean, when they come out with something that's so far out of the rules, you have to and I'm very familiar with the rules. So when something like that comes out of the rules, you just have to take a deep breath for a second and say, no, I'm not quite sure how to deal with this because it's so wrong. It's so non with the rules. I'm not sure exactly what the remedy is. It shouldn't even be here in the first place, which is why it kind of throws you a little bit.
Right.
But if you just stick with the fundamentals, you usually come up with what to do. Like we had a case where somebody had to go to the hospital. It was in a facility, and they sent him to the hospital. And then after he was done, they wanted to return him. They decided they weren't going to take him. Okay, and that was just when that was reported to me, I thought, what the heck are they doing? I mean, when somebody goes into a facility, there's an admittance agreement.
Yes,
it's pretty lengthy.
Yes,
but I mean, I'm very comfortable and familiar with most of the ones that are out there.
Right.
And they, I know what they say, and that doesn't mean you're no longer a resident of the place.
Right.
I mean, if it did, it could be something like this. Okay, I fell down and got hurt. I go to the hospital there for 3 days, 4 days, and now when it's time to go back, it's like, oh, sorry, we rented that bed to someone else because when you left here, you were no longer a resident, and so your bed was wide open.
Yeah.
They don't do that. There's provisions to. There's a time limit on it. They won't hold it forever. Well, they can hold it for longer periods of time as long as you continue paying for it, even when you're not there. Yeah. Okay. But there are provisions for them to have you come back, and again, they still get paid for those days. But
right.
But so then they just say, well, we're not going to take you back, and they usually have some kind of bizarre reason for that. Yeah. And sometimes it's, well, you owe us some money, and we're not going to take it back till you pay us. Yeah. Well, not taking somebody back, I mean, it's a crime. I mean, what they have to do is if they don't take you back, they could dig their heels in and not take you back, but because of if you're an unruly patient or you're a danger to other patients and stuff like that. But what they do they have to find a place to put you. I'm not talking about the hospital. I'm talking about the facility. When they eject somebody, they usually can't eject somebody. It's very hard to eject somebody. But usually when they eject them, they can't just wheel them out in the street and say, sorry.
No, they got to go somewhere.
They got to put them somewhere. Yeah. Now, for most places, anyway, so they don't fall, that came up, and that pretty much went away pretty quick. Now, there was a question in this case about the balance that was due, and, I had spoke to them about the way they were applying the payment that we were doing, and they weren't doing it right. I mean, make a long story short, we had a September billing date, and we structured this thing with one of our Medicaid compliant annuities. So the money came in late in the month, like on the 29th, and it got paid, and it should have been paid, applied to the first day that wasn't paid, which would have been somewhere around September 15th, right? Yeah. But they applied it to October, and so now we had 15 days in September that they claimed weren't paid for. Yeah. So they created a deficit by their inappropriate accounting. Yeah. And now they created a deficit, and then when it didn't get paid after a month or two, they said, well, now we're going to attach a finance charge to it. And it's almost laughable. It's like, okay, first of all, you created the problem. Now you're going to penalize the person for the problem that you created. Yeah. And I had the discussion with them. So I was, I finally put one in a letter and notified the what we call the TennCare ombudsman. Right. And this came up about, well, we're not taking this guy back until his bill's paid, his back bill. Yeah. Right? And it just magically went away. Yeah. And I'm not dropping that because of that. I'm going to still pursue that. Because that never should have been done. It created stress with the family, and it's just, anyway. Then
it's amazing.
Then here the next thing came out with the same case that blows me away is we struggle very hard when we get somebody eligible. When you file their TennCare application, it creates a very special status. Yes. Their status, technically it's called TennCare application pending status. That's a big red letter day in the eligibility process, because once you do that, it takes months for TennCare to get do their thing and come back with approval.
Right.
And so this status recognizes that. And the theory is, once you file an application, they have to. It's not, there's language in the law that's like should, shall, and may. This is a shall. They shall treat that applicant as if he's already been approved.
Yes.
And what that means is he's only going to pay his patient liability.
Right.
So in some cases, if your bill's $9,000 a month and you get $2,000 worth of income, all the income goes to cost of care, and that's your patient liability, and that's all you're required to pay.
Yeah.
Now, this case was a little different because we had an annuity and a penalty period, so we had
Right.
almost the full amount anyway. But
Right.
but that's all you're required by law to pay is
Correct.
the patient liability. And now taking that further, whenever you get in a denial, let's say 2 months later, TennCare says, we're going to deny coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're entitled to appeal. It's called a fair hearing. Okay, it's a very simple thing to perfect. You simply respond to them and said, I want to appeal. You respond to a particular place in TennCare and just say, I want to. You can do it by email. Say, I want to appeal, and that's all you need to do. And the law says that even during an appeal, the pending status maintains.
Okay. Yeah.
So this person wants to come back, and
Yeah.
there was while he was in the hospital, there was an inappropriate denial. I can't remember. It was for. It was for. Well, I'll talk about that later. But we had this denial, which we knew was inappropriate. And
Yes.
I was telling the facility that I haven't seen the denial yet, but as soon as I get it, I'm going to appeal it immediately because the person's eligible.
Yeah.
And then the thing came down and said, okay, we'll take him back, but he's got to pay the full amount until the appeal is won. I just about laughed myself off the chair when that came down to folks, because what about this pending status? How do you just get around that?
Yeah.
So anyway, the theory is, I'm going to lay out in spades how we're going to pay the facility.
Yes.
It's going to be a take it or leave it kind of thing. I'm going to include the TennCare ombudsman and say, listen, here's the rule that supports what we're doing.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if they want to eject them, in the admittance agreement,
Yeah.
it says if they it's called involuntary discharge. If they want to involuntarily discharge the guy, they got to give him 30 days notice.
Yeah.
And usually what I've said in the letter was, if you want to do that, do it, because it says in your policy that we also have that 30 days to cure it, and if we cure it, then you can't discharge them.
Right.
So there's no scenario where if they want to do that, they can file the paperwork for involuntary discharge within the 30 days when the money comes in on the 29th, like it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll cure it. And if they want to do that again in December, they can do it. If they want to do it in January, they can do it. If they want to do it in February, they can do that for as long as they want, and we'll do what we do. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you want to go down that road of wasted effort,
Yeah.
nonsensical, frivolous action, then do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do what we're asking to, then we will do it. It's like this. Asking for more money than the patient estimated liability is a crime.
Yeah.
It's a serious crime.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, hey, that's a crime. We're not going to be part of it. So here's what we're paying what we're supposed to pay, and we're not involved in your wrongdoing. But if you want to do it,
Yeah.
go do it. We'll do what we do.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we'll do what we have to do. And if you want to go down that road, that's your choice. But I often say, listen, before you shoot your mouth off and say this, maybe you ought to talk to your legal department. And I say that as a courtesy. I don't have to warn you that a storm is about to hit, right? I don't have to warn you of that.
Yeah.
But I'm being nice. I'm saying, look, I don't think you quite get it, and maybe you ought to talk to your legal department, because they will tell you exactly what I'm telling you. The legal department's not stupid. Anyway, so that story is still ongoing, but I think it's pretty much under control now. And so it's just the stuff you have to deal with. It's the stuff that comes out. It's so far off the rules. It's just somebody making it up.
Yeah.
And it's so far away from the rules, it's hard to respond, because it's like, first of all, I can respond to it, but you haven't got the capacity to understand what I'm saying, because if you did, you wouldn't be saying something so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, what I would worry about or think about is if someone did not know, like then they would just be taken advantage of, probably.
Good point. And it's, that's why I do things like these seminars and reach out to folks and let them know the things that are available and what to do, because it's a good question. How many people has that exact same thing happened to that they didn't have an advocate pushing back?
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know. I often say this. I say, because TennCare does a lot of inappropriate denials.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's 50-50, but it's way more than it should be.
Yeah.
And they are inappropriate. Inappropriate means they're wrong.
Yeah.
And so if let's just do it. I think it's a numbers game. So let's say out of every 10, let's say they do 10 inappropriate denials. And on 3 of them, there's somebody like me that pushes back and says, wait a minute, you did this wrong. Here's what the law says. You got to do it right. We're going to appeal it. And they just say, okay, you're right. And they change it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that 7 that they got away with?
Yeah.
And that's probably more profitable to not pay or go ahead and pay the 3, but not pay the 7. Now, I can't say that's what's going on because I'm not a fly on the wall in TennCare, but it seems like it. There's some because they do that a lot. And when you push the appeal button, then they start to fold. I was going to talk about an appeal that we had last week. It was last Monday. Or no, it was Monday this week. That's what it was. I'm getting kind of confused with the holiday. Yeah, it was just Monday. And it was a different case, but it was a married case. And the husband was in the facility.
Yeah.
There's different rules when you're married than single. They're way different.
Yeah.
And so I won't get into the eligibility procedure because it is convoluted and hard to understand. It's really kind of weird. When I first got exposed to it, I thought, what a weird way to do it. But anyway, once you know how it works, you know how it works. But it seemed odd. But you can, you can literally shift all the assets from the applicant, the spouse in the home, to the other spouse.
Right.
But there's a time when you get to do that, and it's after you get approved, and you get a 12-month period to do it.
Yeah.
And people say, well, you have to have less than $2,000 of accountable assets. Well, that doesn't apply when you're married. That only applies when you're single. But when you're married, you're allowed to shift. You still have to be below $2,000, but you're entitled to shift everything to the spouse. As a matter of fact, the TennCare Act says you're required to do it. You don't elect to do it. You're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And they give you it's called a grace period. They give you a 12-month period. Now, we've done this many, many times.
Yeah.
And we usually do it right away. We don't wait the 12 months. But as soon as we get approved, we start. It's as simple as this. You have the house. You exclude the house, so they take it out of the eligibility calculations. That's the way you get a couple $100,000 out of the estate, right?
Right.
They divide the property, and then after the person's approved, then the person that's in the nursing home quick claims his all right title and interest to the other spouse.
Yeah.
And now he's transferred that. And the reason we do that is because you can give away anything to a spouse and not trigger a penalty.
Right.
You've heard me say many times, when you give something away, that's the key word. If you're going to gift it away and get nothing for it, the red alarm should go off and say, well, that's a gift. That's going to trigger a penalty period, right?
Right.
Well, there's 2 people we can give things away to that don't incur a penalty. One is a spouse, and the other is a disabled child.
Yeah.
Well, this person didn't have a disabled child, so they had it, but they did have a spouse. So we can gift as much as we want. It is unlimited. There's just different ways of doing it.
That's amazing, really.
And so when you can shift it all to the spouse, that does 2 things. One, it accelerates the applicant spouse's eligibility because we're giving it away with a stroke of a pen, practically.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of time if what we're giving away are these IRAs and these tax-deferred funds that are held by some insurance company. Right. You got to go through them, but nonetheless, it's the same process. And so we get a denial from this case, and they say he's over-resourced. He's over the $2,000. And we're scratching our head and saying, what rule book are they looking at? The $2,000 doesn't apply to a married individual.
Yeah.
And so we try to explain that to them because we're always hopeful we can resolve a case before it gets to the hearing. Well, they dug their heels in. We got to the hearing, and that's what they kept saying. And we pulled out. There was a point in time where during the hearing, it was a couple hours long. It was kind of exhausting because they kept arguing that this was the grace period. They brought in some person they called an expert in litigation, and she couldn't have been more wrong. They just made fools of themselves in this thing. I know the judge heard it because we got to a point where we said, look, I'm kind of tired of arguing a point. The law is clear. It's black letter law. We've presented it to you, Judge. Here's the law. And if you want, I can bring in a couple of dozen Tennessee TennCare applications where we've done this. And I can show you example after example after example of how the law works and what we've done and how the approval came and stuff like that and how the grace period worked. And I said, if you want, we can stop the hearing right now and I can get those. Give me a 30-minute, an hour break, and I'll come back with those. Or let me brief the court before they make their written decision with these things. And before I got the sentence finished, there's no need for that. I have enough to make my decision now. And that tells me, the judge is no idiot. Yeah. Okay. And he'll look into it a little bit, and we're hopeful that decision will be in our favor. It has to be in our favor.
Now, what happens if God forbid, he doesn't rule in your favor? Do you have yet another appeal that you can make?
It's a different appeal. We can actually get him to revisit the appeal.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, then we appeal it to Chancery Court. It's a different court. I mean, we can run it right up the chain.
You can run it all the way up the chain. Okay.
And so now I've only ever had to do that once, and I didn't get very far up the chain before it got turned over. But I think they'll see the light at some time.
Yeah.
I don't understand. These are people that are supposed to be familiar with the rules.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with the rules and you say, well, that doesn't apply, we do this, what good are the rules? I mean, the rules got to be followed. And it's getting, I don't know if it's out of control, but it's just, I don't understand why they think they can get away with that. I think it's because they get away with it a lot.
That would be my guess, is that they aren't challenged on it, so they just do what they want sometimes.
When people look for some people to do the stuff like I do, 10-care eligibility, it's hard to find them. They're far and few between. Yeah. And I used to think it was because it was a complicated subject, but I think now it's a lot more. And a lot of attorneys might say, this is way too aggravating for me. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
It is aggravating, but I often say if there's ever an area of law where people need an advocate, it is this one, because when they pull that stuff, if you don't understand what they're doing, you get, like you said before, you're going to get bulldozed over.
Yeah.
And
it pays to know the rules.
And that's a lot of effort for just doing it for one family member.
We've got Miss Peggy wants to chime in with us this morning, okay? Let's see what she's got on her mind. Hey, good morning. You're on with us.
This is good, but it's for many things. And I wanted to share an experience even with an insurance company. Years ago, we had a life and death situation, surgery, and this was in another state, it had, for 80%, you could go outside the PPO. Do you know what that means? In other words, you can go anywhere in the state.
Yes.
But you can't go outside the state.
Okay.
Well, we assumed that was our decision, not the insurance companies. Well, we were in danger of selling our house because the insurance company came back and said, but we offer this surgery in the state. But we said, but this surgery is not done for that purpose in the state. Mm-hmm. This surgery is done in Tennessee for what we wanted, and they would not approve it. We literally got approval an hour before the surgery in Nashville, thinking we might have to sell our house to pay for it. Yeah. And so I think that most people, based on my experience, and I've had a lot of experience with other people, need to not only talk to the personnel where they work, because this is something I would have questioned had I gone with my husband to personnel. Well, what does this mean, 80%? Is that our decision or is that their decision? But it was one of those things that I didn't question at the time. But also even sit down with an attorney, I would say at the age of 35 or 40, to make sure you understand not only, the health insurance and things like that, but everything, because when these lawyers get to court, and I've seen lawyers I don't like, and I know a lot of their jokes about them, but the rubber hits the road. It's what's in writing, what's legal, and it's supposed to be about the rules. So I'll get off. I have a whole page here, but I just wanted to mention that.
All right, thank you. Very good. Yeah, she has a lot of information there, and the underlying point to me is that when you're entering into any kind of legal type circumstance, you really need to know what's happening. You need to know what's going on.
Big difference.
And it pays to have good counsel.
The big difference between what I was talking about and what the caller was talking about is an insurance policy.
Right.
And that is a contract. And when they say they're not going to pay for this because we only pay for it in a state or whatever it was. Yeah. I mean, that was agreed to at some point in time when you signed the insurance policy. Yeah. And so they're just trying to enforce that. I mean, they don't really hide that stuff. If you read the policy, first of all, they're very long. Yeah. Second of all, they're in like 2-point font. Yeah. And they're it's sort of in a veiled language in a way. It's hard. Oh yeah. But I can just about promise you that I've never read one. It's there because often people come to me and say, the insurance company says they're not going to cover this. I'm really disappointed. I thought it was supposed to, and my response is, I said, if you bring me that contract, I guarantee you it's in there, and that they won't cover that. They cover their bases, but you agreed upon it. So sometimes that's hard to recover. If they approve that surgery for them an hour before, I'd say we're lucky that happened because there's not really any entitlement if it's written. Now, if the language that approves it may be ambiguous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they may just say, you know what, we'll just cover it because if it's not as clear as you just absolutely positively cannot have it in another state. You know?
Right.
And they usually are not that definitive about stuff because if it is life or death, whatever, that sort of thing. So,
right.
That's a contract that's governing that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will say whether it's your decision or their decision. Usually it's theirs, And a PPO, I think, is some kind of provider, primary provider or something. But
right.
But it's just like what I'm talking about. There's rules.
Right.
And if rules aren't followed, you should be able to enforce them, and that's what the courts are for. So you have to have some confidence that the court will do it. I don't know the reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot of things I would like to take to my state representative. Just to like an attorney general opinion. You can get them to solicit the attorney general to make an opinion on something.
Yes.
And although that's not law, it's very persuasive once that happens. So
yeah.
But I can sympathize with that frustration because it's very similar. The experience I'm talking about is very similar. It's just not a contractual thing.
Right.
Actually, I use the contracts in my favor, like the contract when somebody gets admitted. I know that facility's contract. I've been through it with a fine-tooth comb on multiple occasions. I know what I can use and what I can't. Like I said,
yeah.
If they want to eject this person, they can. They got to give us 30 days notice. And 30 days from that notice, we can cure it, and then the notice goes away.
Yeah.
If you just don't, because what this boils down is, well, you get your annuity pays late in the month, and it goes into a qualified income trust. And the answer is yes, that's right. And they say, but we want our money the first of the month, for the month, in advance. And it's like, well, I can't do it because it doesn't come in till the end of the month. Well, just pay us out of some other fund, later. And I say, I can't do that because the money that goes into the QIT is earmarked and can only go to the cost of care.
Right.
So I can't pay it. You can have the third-party family member pay it on the first of the month, and then they're saying, well, then when the annuity pays, just reimburse that person. Can't do it because it's reimbursed. It goes into the QIT, and the QIT says it has to go to the cost of care. It can't go to somebody to be reimbursed. So they don't understand that. And I said, it's like, well, here's what we'll do. We'll pay you on the 29th when it comes in. All right. Well, every first or second of the month, we'll issue paper to involuntary discharge that person. Okay, go ahead and do that. On the 29th, I'll cure it. That'll be within my 30 days. And then the discharge becomes null and void. If you want to do it again the next month, we'll go through this song and dance, this waste of time, energy, and effort. And they usually don't. They've never had them do it. When I explained to them,
amazing.
I said, look, here's what you need to look at. It's a guaranteed payment. It's just not on the first.
Yeah.
It's the QIT. It's irrevocable and unassignable. So when the annuity deposits to the QIT says it can only go to the cost of care, and the fact that it goes into this trust and only goes to the cost of care is irrevocable and unassignable. Nobody can change it or revoke it. So it's a guaranteed payment. You just got to wait till the 29th to get it.
For those that don't know, the QIT is a
qualified income trust. And sometimes when you talk to people, it has a street vernacular name called a Miller Trust. Same thing. And they call it a Miller Trust because there was a case back in the early 2000s where it was somebody versus Miller, the commissioner of Medicaid, Health and Human Services, and so where they established that this was okay to do. So they called it a Miller Trust. But it technically is a qualified income trust. Because when you get this annuity, it pushes you over the income cap.
Yeah.
Now, the only way you can be over the income cap, still be eligible, is to say, okay, we'll let you take everything that's over the cap and guarantee that it could go no place other than to the cost of care. That way you're not over-resourced with extra income that you get to keep.
Yeah.
So when you put it in here, it's irrevocable, unassignable, and it can only go to the cost of care. So I can't reimburse the family member to pay it early.
Mm-mm.
It's just gone. And now it's going to screw things up because now we're going to have a whole payment in the QIT that has no place to go because the QIT is designed to pay for our penalty period, which is a finite number of months.
Right.
So I understand that they don't get all that. But, I mean, I just try to point out that you're going to get paid. This is the mechanism of how you're going to get paid. I don't understand why it's such a leap to dig your heels on and say it's got to be on the first of the month. I get it, but it's a guaranteed payment. There's nothing I can do to stop it.
Sometimes it seems to me, though, in having these conversations with you, that people in those positions that do this for a living ought to know those rules.
I mean, you would think so, but it's clear. It's clear that they don't. It's clear they have policy.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing we talked about this business about not taking him back, and if he does come back, you got to pay the full pay until the appeal is won.
Yeah.
That was prefaced by saying, "Well, the administration has instructed me to tell you this."
Yeah.
So there's some, as indicating maybe somebody higher up was dictating that response.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that higher ups don't get it, and it probably didn't come from higher up. But I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. That's just what we were told. But it pretty much has become a non-issue. I mean, I don't know why they get upset about it, but if they are, I can't help it. I mean, it's going to happen again, and it's happened in the past. It happens a lot. I mean, and here's all of this is in compliance with TennCare rules, right?
Yeah.
When you're a facility and you agree to take TennCare patients, you
get your mic up a little closer.
When you're when you are a facility and you agree to take TennCare patients, you agree to take all the rules that come with it. So you're going to, in other words, you're going to get a guaranteed payment. TennCare pays,
Right.
and they will pay, but it is guaranteed. But if you want to take TennCare patients and get that guaranteed payment, then you got to take all the rules that go with TennCare too. You don't pick and choose.
Right. Right.
If you want to be a private pay facility, and there's very few out there, but you can be a private pay facility where you have to vet somebody very carefully up front to make sure that they won't run out of money and apply for TennCare.
Right.
Because once a person applies for TennCare, you have a facility that says we don't take TennCare, and they can do that. But if you take a person and then they do run out of money and they file for TennCare, you cannot eject them.
You can't move them out.
That's right. So you need to vet them very clearly up front to make sure they have enough to pay for however long, an infinite period of time. But most facilities take TennCare. And when you do, you get these rules. That's why I include the ombudsman whenever I get a controversy like this, because his job is to make sure things like this go smoothly, and the rules are the rules. And the rules allow us to do this annuity, and the annuity through the insurance company, who determine when it pays out. If it comes late in the month, then you get your money. You just get it late in the month, but you're guaranteed to get it. Right? So what's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference between forcing somebody to pay it the first of the month so you have it in advance, or a guaranteed payment that nobody can stop? By law, by state law, the people that are actually making the payment, the facility is going to get it under our law no matter what. I don't see the difference, other than some kind of, well, this is our policy and we don't like to be outside our policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, your policy has to yield to the TennCare laws. It has to. You want to talk about a contract? When they agreed to take TennCare patients, there's a big contract, and it's in there.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's there. They have to take the rules.
Yeah.
And they don't know the rules to take them, and that's where the problem comes between them communicating with public.
In any business that you go into, there are certain laws and rules that apply to your business that you have to adhere to.
Yeah.
If you're a car dealer, if you're a car dealer, you got to operate under the rules of a car dealer.
Just commerce rules,
or a real estate company.
Yeah, Consumer Fair Practices Act, things like that.
Yeah, there's all kind of things that apply to you that you have to operate under.
Not to mention, if you're like an LLC or something, you have an operating agreement that has how you conduct business and stuff within yourself.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, when you deal with the public, a lot of things come with that.
Right.
You don't just sign up for it. You know what I mean?
Well, you can't decide to open up a long-term care facility with it and just make up your own rules to do it.
Well, I guess you could. You could, but as soon as you involve the government, then there has to be a compromise now.
Yeah, but
I could open up my house and say, I'm going to take care of long-term patients, and I'm not going to take any money from the government.
Yeah.
If you're on TennCare, I'm not going to take care of you. You have to private pay me no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I could do that. Now, I'm going to be bound to certain health laws and negligence of putting people in danger and stuff like that. I mean, those are common law tort actions and stuff. They have nothing to do with TennCare, nothing to do with what I'm doing.
Right.
I can't endanger people in the practice of what I'm doing.
Right.
If you're charging money for something, if you're doing a service and charging for it, you're held to a higher standard.
Sure.
Than if you're just volunteering your time. You know what I mean? So there's going to be some standard. It may not be a set of rules, but it's a standard of care. Mm-hmm. And there's a low standard of care and there's a high standard of care. When you charge for services, in other words, when you turn your services into profit and gain, you've entered the world of commerce. And when you enter the world of commerce, negligence is in full force and effect, and so you have a standard of care, a standard a high level of standard of care to people. You know, so there's a lot that goes on. You're right. So it's and you can't avoid that. You talk to any businessman, they'll talk for hours about the stuff they have to deal with.
Sure, absolutely.
And, you know, it's like if it's, you know, some things are more high risk than others. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, if you're in a lawn mowing business, not too many rules maybe to follow. You know, maybe, but if you're in the business of manufacturing and selling chainsaws, it's a dangerous instrument, right? I mean, you got to put warnings on. You got to deal with, make sure people know and understand what it does. You have to have safeguards. You have to have protection so you can't get hurt with these things, which I can't figure out how anybody can ever afford to make chainsaws. It's such a dangerous instrument. You know what I mean? There'd be so many warnings. I actually saw, when I was in, years ago, I spent some time in New Jersey. It was kind of a temporary job, but it was a temporary job that lasted about a year. But anyway, and there was something that came on where some people, it was a warning case where, you know, when you have to post warnings on things, placards and stuff.
Yes.
There was a case where a couple of people, I won't go into their ethnicness, but nonetheless, there was a couple of people to come up with a creative way to use a lawnmower to trim the top of hedges.
Okay.
And the end result was loss of a couple fingers. I mean, golly, I never would have thought that would happen. Nobody, honestly, anybody could have seen that coming ahead of time. And I'm being facetious, of course.
Oh my gosh!
This is, I can't use the word, but this is one of the ones where you can say, "I blank you not."
Yes.
This is an absolute truth case.
A true story.
And, you know, the case said pretty much that, you know, you need to put warnings on these lawnmowers. Say you don't grab them with your hands underneath and pick them up and trim hedges with them. And the arguments were, okay, does the warning have to say you don't trim weeds with them that way either, or you don't trim trees with them? I mean, how far do these warnings have to go? Yeah. I mean, where does a warning stop and the stupidity begin? Is kind of what the argument was in layman's terms. It was interesting. I forget how it turned out, but it was just. And so when I saw that, I remember thinking to myself, I thought, how the heck is anybody going to manufacture and sell chainsaws? I mean, those things.
The thought that
oh my gosh.
The thought that strikes me that if you're dumb enough to stick your hand under a running lawnmower and pick it up, you're not smart enough to read the warnings.
Well, you know, that's a good point. That is a good point. You know, now you think of pharmaceuticals and warnings. My gosh.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you take this, it'll screw you up in about 200 different ways. Those are the warnings, you know, and they have to list them all. And oh my gosh. Anyway, we digress a little bit. But,
we did.
But anyway, those are a couple cases we had. I think the one I talked about the married couple will get itself resolved relatively quickly. Yeah. I think we got 10 days to hear what the judge has to say, and I think that's going to go. I think it's going to go our way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it pays to know the rules, and of course, I have advocated to get good counseling, and you are all about also. I mean, this program is about encouraging people to do some proper planning before you're in a circumstance where you have to do something.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that's probably one of the most key things that anybody could do is to do some pre-planning, estate planning, before you're faced with what everybody's going to face at some point.
I agree, and that's what the word planning kind of implies.
Sure.
Doing something ahead of time.
Sure. Sure.
And, you know, when you say until you have to do something, you know, when you do regular planning to, you know, probate avoidance and stuff, well, when you have to do something is when you don't have a trust and you end up in probate.
Yeah.
Or no will and you end up in probate, right?
Right.
Now it's kind of too late. Now you have to deal with what's the cards you've been dealt. Another aspect of planning is, like I said, you know, being concerned about long-term care.
Yeah.
If you just end up there, well, now a lot of the things we could have done are not available.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But hopefully I got it far enough away from your mic
that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, if you can pre-plan, we can really do a lot of stuff. But if you, like our trust, we have an asset protection trust. But if you put property in a trust, it really needs to be there for a while to have its full effect. Mm-hmm. So you got to do it ahead of time. You got to do it before you're in a nursing home, because once you go in the nursing home, the trust is not always the solution. It's often not the solution because the trust needs time, and now we don't have it because you're already there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So planning is exactly that. You got to do something ahead of time, and if you do something ahead of time, we can really protect a lot of stuff almost completely. You know, and I get it. I get the procrastination thing. I mean, I did it myself.
Oh yeah.
In my seminars, I have a whole slide toward the end about procrastination. It's like, you know, I get it. I understand it. I'm complete in sympathy with that. I've done it myself.
I'm probably one of the best at it.
I know. What I heard somebody say one time, I put the pro in procrastination.
Yes. I was going to procrastinate, but I'm going to wait till tomorrow.
Well, and here's what I found. Procrastination is sometimes driven by not having the knowledge of what your options are, what your choices are.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I can do.
Yeah.
So that brings me back to my seminars. You know, my seminars are designed to let you know that when you're dealing with estate planning, you have got options. You've got a lot of options. You just never heard any of them before.
Yeah.
And so we have the seminars to bring them up. I can't tell you how many times people come to my office or my seminar. I mean, they are literally head in hand. They are distraught. And Gertrude or somebody's in the home. They've approached them how much it's going to cost, and you got to pay us. We're going to kick her out.
Right.
It's $10,000 a month, and she, we need to check today. And they are just like, it's all over with. There's nothing we can do. She's going to lose everything. There's nothing we can do. We're just SOL. It's just that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
You know, and they come to me and talk to me, or come to my seminar. I start talking about solutions to the very problem.
Right.
There's options. You are not without options when it happens.
Right.
Now, you could be with more and better options had you thought of it early, but you're not without options altogether.
Right.
Still a lot we can do and save. Sometimes if you're married, we can save all of it at that last 11th hour. Now, I absolutely positively do not advocate waiting till the 11th hour to do that.
Right.
But if you are a married couple, we have some extra tools that we can typically save everything.
Yes.
Or at least almost everything.
Yeah.
But where if you do something ahead of time, we can save everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Absolutely.
You know, you have a lifetime of wealth, and you're like, I don't want to lose this to cost of long-term care. I don't blame you. Mm-hmm. Nobody else does. I hear that story many, many times. And you don't need to. You don't need to. And a lot of people think, well, I guess they just go in and just keep paying until it's gone. And they say that because that's all they've ever heard. That's
right.
not the only one. That is an option. I don't think it's a good one.
Right.
I think that option sucks, to be honest with you.
Right.
But if that's all you heard, that's all you think you can do.
Yeah.
And you've been told that by the facility. You've been told that by Joe across the street, whose mom went in the nursing home. You've been told that on social media when you look at it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to say that's not a true option. It's just not a good one.
Yeah.
Who wants to pick an option that's going to completely exhaust your estate? Now mom's going to get in the nursing home, but now she's indigent, and that's all she gets. In other words, you don't have any money to augment or enhance her quality of life because it's all gone. Or if you do, it's got to come out of your pocket now. I mean, that is a way. Just I don't
not the best way.
I think it's a terrible way. But the good thing is there's a ton of other ways to do it. Wouldn't it be better to get her care and keep everything that she owns?
Yeah.
And then if she needs something that the care doesn't provide, she has the wherewithal to enhance her quality. You know, so classic example is a private room. You know.
Yes.
If I'm in the nursing home, I'm probably going to need a private room. I'm hard to get along with, or I talk too much. Okay.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be better if my family preserves all my assets, and TennCare pays my bill like it's supposed to?
Yes.
Because I participated in TennCare for decades, right?
Right.
And so TennCare is paying my bill, but I got to get a private room, and TennCare doesn't pay for a private room.
Right.
Well, now my family can use part of my wealth, and every month pay a couple extra $100 to get the private room.
Right.
And give it to me. Now, they're not paying the lion's share of the bill. They're just paying for the amenity, which is a fraction of it.
Right.
And now whatever I have that they've preserved is going to last a long time when you spend it that way. Whereas if they're spending the entire bill of $10,000 a month, it's going to go much faster.
Yeah.
And I'll be at a point where there is nothing. Now, let's play that out. You spend it, spend it, spend it, there's nothing left to spend.
Yeah.
Now you get yourself qualified. Now that's all you have. Now, if TennCare doesn't pay for something, how are you going to pay for it? You spend it all on this unnecessary spend down process.
Yeah.
So,
and I've listened. I've had personal experience with running into people who are dealing with an estate and or dealing with someone in long-term care, and they have just out and out said to me, well, we're just going to have to pay till they run out of money.
Yep.
And I'm like, I've said maybe you need to talk to somebody because you may not have to.
Yeah. I mean, they couch it in the fact that, and I don't think they're trying to mislead. I just think that's all they know.
Yeah.
They say, we're entitled to be paid for our services. And I would not argue with that.
Absolutely.
They're entitled to be paid for their services. But then they shouldn't offer how they're going to get paid, and they shouldn't say we need to sell everything so we can get it all. Right. Now they're getting out of their lane, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But That reminds me of a call that I'm dealing with somebody. I hadn't been actually hired on it yet, but it's a case we're talking about where individual, his mom is in care. It's expensive. He's outside the Medicare window, and so it's all private pay, right?
Right.
And she has 2 pieces of property. Now, I was speaking to him, and I wanted to explore, because, the primary residence falls into a special category.
Right.
But the primary residence is defined as all that and all contiguous property.
Right.
Now, and you know what I mean by contiguous.
I do.
And he told me this used to be a 10-acre plot. It got divided into 3 parcels at one time. And so it sounded to me like they might be that way. So I said, send me the addresses and stuff, and I'll pull the map up and look. Well, unfortunately, turns out, by definition, it says it's not part of the primary residence if there's a third-party owner in between the 2 pieces of property.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we had. There was parcel one that was the primary residence. Then to the north was a parcel that somebody else owned.
Yep.
And then the next one to the north was the one the son owned.
Yes.
Or didn't own. That was the second one Mom owned. Okay?
The other one they owned. Yeah.
Now, the nurse, because when he came to me, he said, the nursing home told me to sell that second parcel. He said, but I can't do that. I've got my house is there. It was like a double wide, but I live there. I've been living there for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
He says, so I don't want to sell it because I sell it on the open market. I mean, they're not going to let me keep it parked there. And I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let me take a look because it may be part of the primary residence. But it turned out it wasn't. But it doesn't mean we're not without options. We just don't have that option.
Don't have that option.
That would have been an easier fix. But I'm playing the cards I'm dealt.
Right.
And I didn't get the 4th ace. I now only have 3. We'll see what we can do. We'll see how many of those aces I can hang on to. Right. And but so we're in the very pre-planning stages of that for crisis planning. See what we can do to salvage that.
Right.
And there's a way to keep that house and get him to get it for practically no cost that I've come up with so far. So it's and again, when you do these, you have to know the rules to know that you can be able to do that sort of thing.
Right.
So I guess the bottom line I keep coming back to is there's always options. I've never had a case where there wasn't something I could do.
Oh yeah.
Now it's like, boy, this is a shame. There's so many things that I can't do that we normally do because of this, that, or that. But I can always find a rabbit in the hat somewhere. I've never had a case yet where I say, well, we're just SOL, just pay till it's all gone.
Yeah.
I managed to save something. Even a case comes to mind that was so egregious and so messed up by the time it got to me. There were some things I just could not recover from.
Right.
But we managed to preserve a certain amount of the assets.
Yeah.
But I could have done so much more if I'd have been there in the first place. But I mean, it is what it is. There's no sense with the hindsight. Yeah. That's why I say things on here, and that's why you even recommend.
Well, that's part of the purpose.
Let's plan it. Let's do it ahead.
That's part of the purpose of you being on this program and having your seminars is to invite people to learn what their options are and what they should and could plan for. And I was thinking about this earlier. Until I began talking with you quite a bit, I wouldn't have even known what to ask. So how do you deal with that when you have someone that like, okay, well, I'm green here. Me and my wife are married. We've got a house and a little bit of savings, and we're beginning to think about the future. We don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, the way I approach that is I say, okay, tell me what problem you want to solve. What are you worried about? And somebody said, well, let's take your example. So my wife and I, we're both in retirement. We worked all our lives. We want to keep our money. And in my wife's family, there's a history of dementia.
Yeah.
And we just kind of don't want to lose all our money if something happens.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that tells me where your thought process is. Okay. So let's start talking about planning against that problem that you're trying to solve. How can we solve that problem? And then we just start. We usually gravitate toward one methodology or another. That way.
Yeah.
So I want to put that question out there. If you're listening and you haven't come to one of my seminars, if you are in a position, if you got somebody that's in long-term care or headed that way,
yeah,
and that's a scary thought because when people think about that and the money that's involved, it makes you very anxious.
Yeah.
And so if you're in that boat, come to a seminar. Or call me. We have a recorded version that I do by invitation only. But if you can't wait, if things are really breathing down your neck and you can't wait till end of January, give me a call. Yeah. Or if you're just doing planning and you're thinking, do I worry about my in-laws getting my kids' money, or I worry about my kids spending it. And that worries you. Let's plan. Let's plan to keep that from happening. We can solve all those problems.
You want to take a call?
Sure.
Right,
we got a few minutes.
Well, they hung up just as I picked it up. So
I will.
Sorry about that.
If you're having trouble with the microphone, the headphones sure work.
The headphones work, yeah.
Because that dial tone is
loud.
I have about cleaned out my sinuses.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No problem.
All
problem.
right.
But yeah, again, the thing is, if you have an issue and you don't know what to do about it, don't feel like it's a dumb question. Just come tell me what you're worried about.
Yeah.
Let me run with it and see if I can hit the nail on the head. I think I can. And then once we know what the problem we're trying to solve is, then it's a simple matter of implementing the solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we are kind of getting toward the end. So
we are getting close. We're getting close. But you want to remind everybody your seminar.
Yeah, I do. It's January the 25th. That's a Saturday. Saturday seminars are at 10 a.m. It's right here at the WLX radio station. Now, don't come to the front of the building. Come to the back. The double doors in the back. They got a nice big venue back there where they dance on and pick and grin and dance on Friday nights.
Oh, yeah.
And big area we can put up tables and chairs and pretty large.
Now, the date is?
25th, January 25th.
So we got a little time to plan for this one. That's good.
Well, I wanted to stay well out of the holidays, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because during the holidays, me included, want to take some time off, spend some time with the family. Don't really want to. Although I do recommend that when you are in the holidays and you have a lot of family getting together, it is a prime time to discuss some things like this.
Yeah, it would be.
I mean, just to chew the fat on it. You know, just not talk about commitments just yet, but just throw out there and say, hey, we're thinking about doing some planning because, you know, we're worried. We want to make sure you guys get what's coming to you. It doesn't get sucked up by some court process.
That's a very good time.
Yeah. But then, you know, after the holidays, we go back into our seminar schedule. So it's called Will's Trust in the Nursing Home. We start at 10 o'clock on Saturdays right here at WLX at the back of the building, Country Cafe. Call my office at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law at 931-363-7222. If you want to RSVP, just give us a head count. We'll send you reminders about it, or you'll get a phone call the day before just to remind you. If you can't commit, you want to come but you can't commit, and at the very last minute, just come on and walk in. We got plenty of room.
Yeah.
The RSVP is not that formal.
That's right.
It's not that kind of thing. And so, you know, if you hadn't been to one, come to it. If you have the questions, bring them with you. We have a question and answer period at the end. It's really my favorite part. And ask them. Or if you develop it during the presentation, write it down and present it at the end. And, you know, you're not alone. You're not going to be the only one asking questions. So don't worry about that. It's designed for you to give you your options. You know, I'm not going to lock the door and make you sign anything. I'll even have some food for you there. Just come hear what we have to say. I guarantee you'll hear some options you've never heard before, and they will sound appetizing to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's
all about estate planning, bulletproof estate planning. EstatePlanStan.com is a way to find out more.
That's right. My website, EstatePlanStan.com. You can see where I'm going to be on the calendar. You can get the email if you want to ask a question that way, or you get the phone number to call.
Got a great office location over there on the Pulaski Square, and I would encourage you to plan a visit. If you can't wait till the 25th, I'm sure Stan would make a phone appointment. You do those things?
We can do that, and if you know, I have a recorded version of my seminar. I do it it's not on my website because I do it by invitation. But if you need to see it, or can't make it, or need to see it soon, I'm more than happy to send that out. The live ones are better, but this is the next best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
we timed that pretty good. According to your clock, we've got about 45 seconds left.
Yeah, we've had a good visit.
It was.
Friday mornings are always here with Stan, Bulletproof Estate Planning, Stan Pierchoski Estate Law, located in Pulaski, Tennessee, on the public square right there. Not hard to find at all. And again, that phone number, 363-7222. Stan, so good to see you as always.
And at the Star Theater, auditions for Finding Nemo, the kids version.
Oh, that's
December 18.
Awesome. So that's the audition starting.
Yeah. Auditions, yeah.
Auditions. Well, very good. Get over there. You'll enjoy that theater. It's nice.
We'll see you next Friday.
All right, buddy.
1,000 jobs topping the forecast. October's disappointing number affected by hurricanes and strikes was revised up to 36,000 from the